Today's episode of Superhero Video Games brought to you by pretty much every Spidey game that's ever dared to advertise on TV. Hey, Chris Baker here. If you're like me, you mostly hate TV commercials. But whenever one pops up about video games, you stop to take notice. On that note, I'm really hoping that Sony surprises us with some great spots worthy of prime time for Spider-Man PS4. A recent video from the excellent My Life in Gaming channel took a closer look at a bunch of classic TV spots from 1994. And I'm totally stealing that idea and ranking every single commercial for a Spider-Man game that I can find out there. I'm pretty much restricted to what YouTube has to offer, so one or two may have slipped by me, but I think we're pretty close to a comprehensive look at every Spider-Man game commercial. It's also important to note that I'm talking strictly TV commercials here. And for fun, I'm allowing ads that may have appeared in that 22-minute X-Men VHS tape you bought for $15 in 1993 because you thought Wolverine vs. Sabretooth was so awesome. And it was. In other words, we're not talking any full game trailers that you'd only see online. Got that? Then let's get started.
No need to panic. Could be critical. The odds are against you. Spider-Man faces 20 supervillains so powerful even with the Fantastic Four. His number may be up. Marvel's Spider-Man, the video game from Acclaim.
This is a 15-second spot, and we get 5 animations that we'll see in the game. Not 5 seconds of gameplay, 5 animations, which isn't very much. The rest is animation, and some weird flatline theme that has nothing to do with the game either. You never see Spider-Man in a hospital or anything. Beyond that, it's just false advertising. It leads you to believe there are 20 supervillains in the game. There's not. There are 2 different games, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Let's look at the manuals here. Super Nintendo, 17 villains. Sega Genesis, 16 villains. That's not 20. But Acclaim really loved this theme, and they even doubled down on it in all of their print ads. This ad right here was all over comic books when the game came out.
New York City. Panic. Terror. Chaos. And that was before. Maximum Carnage.
What? Now I have nothing but love for the game Maximum Carnage. In many ways it made me a Spider-Man fan combined with the animated series of the time. But this commercial is just terrible. Never mind the fact that there's hardly any gameplay in it. It kind of makes it feel like Carnage is some sort of alien invasion or something. I really wonder if the ad agency knew so little about the character that all they did was take a look at this piece of key art and they were like, that's what Carnage does. And you'd think the TV ad would be the crown jewel of an advertising campaign, but the print ads were so much better. Paint the town red was an awesome slogan, and it's not even used in this. Even the highly questionable use of Carnage as a way to get kids to read was better marketing material than this. Incidentally, if you happen to own one of the certificates mentioned in this ad right here, I'd really like to see it. Please let me know.
Sega introduces Spider-Man with real web-slinging action. Genesis. New Streets of Rage. You control 40 incredible moves.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more.
Sega Genesis gives you more real villains, hot graphics, and killer 2-player action.
Genesis.
It's a whole lot more.
Genesis. Gotta get Genesis.
If you were alive at the time, you know that Sega was known for its awesome advertising for the Sega Genesis. At first, that was
Genesis does
What Nintendo don't.
And then later it became this ad? It's somewhere right in the middle, I guess. The ad definitely does a nice job of showing off gameplay, balanced out with Streets of Rage, of course, but it's also just kind of straightforward and boring. And oh yeah, the name of the game is wrong. For this particular game, I also found another ad from that same time period for it, but I don't think Sega produced it, so therefore I'm not including it as an official entry. But it's definitely worth a watch for its amazing 90s-ness.
Sega Genesis.
Genesis. Absolutely Sega Genesis. It's gotta be Spider-Man.
Sega Genesis.
Definitely Strider.
Sega Genesis.
Go with Strider, Spider-Man, just two hot names of the games. Sega Genesis systems and games sold separately, available at these fine stores.
I know a lot of you watching weren't born yet, but this is totally what we did in the 90s. We would play Spider-Man, and then we'd just go outside against a wall and we'd move our head in perfect synchronization with a friend of ours. You should try it sometime. There's nothing that makes you feel cooler, trust me.
Sega Genesis.
Now what are we gonna fight for?
Truth.
And
Justice!
good boy.
Beat the villains, control them, and make them fight for you. Spider-Man, friend or foe, you won't believe who's on your side. Rated everyone 10 and up.
Come on, who's your daddy?
You are. Beat the villains, control them, and make them fight for you. Spider-Man, friend or foe, you won't believe who's on your side. Rated everyone 10 and up.
These two ads for friend or foe are so similar, I just kind of group them together. They're not bad, I guess. They get the idea across of what the game's all about. The jokes, not so great, but maybe they spoke to the younger audience. Basically, from here on out, the ads get okay to pretty good.
UGO says Spider-Man 2 is a phenomenal experience. IGN loves its dazzling sense of aerial freedom. And Stuff calls it a must-have. Spider-Man 2 the game, rated T for teen. Watch the exclusive Making of the Game feature on the Spider-Man 2 DVD in stores November 30th.
Now, it's actually really refreshing to see a video game for Spider-Man with good quotes like you'd see in a movie ad or something. I just wish for this they had shown more actual gameplay and really kind of drilled home how great the web swinging is in it. The IGN quote kind of speaks to that, but it could have been plussed up big time. Funny, for some reason my 3.5 out of 5 for the official US PlayStation magazine didn't make this ad.
It's Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man like you've never seen him before, in 4 action-packed video games. Spider-Man comes to the NES in Revenge of the Sinister Six. Dr. Octopus has assembled Electro, Mysterio, Hobgoblin, and more. Only you can disarm his evil plan to rule the world. For portable web-swinging action, it's Spider-Man 2 for Game Boy and Spider-Man for Game Gear. You'll need your spider sense when you take on supervillains Venom and Carnage. Get ready as Marvel Comics' Dream Team bursts onto Super Nintendo in Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. It'll take all your mutant powers, Spidey's webs, Wolverine's adamantium claws, Cyclops' optic blasts, Storm's lightning, and Gambit's exploding cards to foil Arcade's diabolical plot. Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man on NES, Game Boy, Game Gear, and now Super Nintendo. If this is too much action for you, take it up with this guy.
So this is one of the commercials that would have appeared before the feature presentation on one of those video cassettes that you bought in the 1990s. And for what it is, it does a pretty good job of showing what the games are, and you actually get a pretty good idea of who the characters are because they're using footage from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and other 80s cartoons. And I have no idea where those 3D models came from that look like they're straight out of PlayStation 1 cutscenes, but if they were created for this, I'm pretty impressed actually. And if you go back and listen closely, you can tell they were going for kind of a riff on the classic Spider-Man theme song, but they probably didn't have the money to actually use that, so it's just different enough. Also, there's full male nudity.
Be Spider-Man. Swing from buildings. Shoot webs. Bring down the bad guys. And for the first time ever, you have all his cool spider powers.
Jim, the garbage isn't going to take itself out.
You don't just play it, you live it.
Jim?
Spider-Man the game. Rated E for everyone. From the creators of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
PlayStation.
So here we have a pretty straightforward ad for the first truly great Spider-Man game. The joke at the end is kinda lame, but it shows the action off really well. One thing though, this just is not true.
And for the first time ever, you have all his cool spider powers.
Lots of games before Neversoft's Spider-Man gave you Spider-Man's cool powers. This one just did it the best.
I am agility.
I am speed. I am stealth. I am power.
I am Spider-Man.
Command the power of all four Spider-Man in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Rated Teen.
So here we have one of the 5 Spider-Man games I actually worked on, and it's pretty good. We've got some good quotes, we know what the game looks like, we know what the game is about, all in 15 seconds, which is pretty impressive. It's just super straightforward without trying to show you anything more than what the game's about, and that it's good.
Continue the adventure with Spider-Man the game. Battle more vicious villains, master more spider skills, and combat evil high above the city streets. Spider-Man the game, rated everyone.
I'm really impressed with how much cool stuff Activision managed to pack into this 15 seconds. It starts out with an impressively smooth transition from movie to game, and then you see like this barrage of villains and some cool moves, and even like are on Goblin's glider for a little bit. That's a lot of cool stuff, and I can see it winning people over in just 15 seconds.
When you play Ultimate Spider-Man,
Somebody help me!
you can use your powers to protect mankind, or wreak havoc and terrorize humanity. Swing through the city as Spider-Man, or storm the streets as Venom. Defend New York City against the forces of evil, or unleash your fury and crush everything in sight. Ultimate Spider-Man, rated T for teen, available now.
If this showed more actual gameplay, it would rank higher, but it's a really impressive ad. The art direction in this game was phenomenal, arguably the best there's ever been in a Spider-Man game, and they do a good job of drilling home the idea that you get to play as Spider-Man and Venom, which is very appealing. If you haven't played Ultimate Spider-Man, or at least watched its cutscenes on YouTube, you're really missing out. It's great stuff.
Introducing Spider-Man 2 Web Action Gaming System. One base unit that plugs into your TV. Then strap on the high-tech hand and leg sensors and prepare to tangle with Doc Ock and his terrifying tentacles. You control the action. Spin your way through 5 different levels. Let Spider-Man shoot webs, throw punches, jump rooftops, even swing into action. Because with Doc Ock on the loose, the best defense is a Spidey offense. Spider-Man 2 Web Action Video Game plugs into your TV set. Batteries not included.
I've never heard of this thing until now, and this commercial really makes me want to play it. This is a pre-Wii universe right here, and motion controls aren't played out yet. If this thing actually works, which it probably doesn't, but if this thing actually works, it's a pretty cool little Spider-Man 2 video game system you got here, all on its own. One really odd thing that struck me about this ad is that we never hear who actually put it out. I thought it might be Jax Pacific who did a lot of games like this, but it's actually a company called N-Vision, which I really can't find anything about, nor can I find what an actual packaged copy of this game looks like. I just see this on Amazon. And it's also very interesting on Amazon because there are 5 reviews, and every single one of them has a different star rating. I've never seen that before.
Not so fast, Electro. Because Spider-Man's back, and you'll need more than the city's power supply to take on Spidey's ice and taser webbing, stellar new fighting combos, and 19 killer Spidey suits, all with different powers.
Hey, Electro! Who's got the power now?
Spider-Man 2, enter Electro. They're ready to fight. Are you? Rated E for everyone.
I kind of hate Spidey's zinger at the end of this. Who's got the power now? But I love how far Activision went to make this really feel like a comic book game ad. It gives you a lot of good gameplay footage, and it even mentions alternate costumes, which may be the only time in video game history that's been a selling point in an advertisement. Just a really fun ad that makes me want to play the game.
Did you see that thing?
Yeah, what is that?
Look, are you getting this? Look!
This doesn't make sense. Oh my God.
How far will you go to save New York? Spider-Man Web of Shadows, rated T for teen.
Spider-Man Web of Shadows was the first Spidey game I actually worked on, and I barely remember this commercial. But nearly a decade later, I'm pretty impressed with it. It has a really cool kind of scene to get you hooked at the beginning. Kind of reminds me of Cloverfield, which came out the same year. I don't think that's a coincidence. And then we get this nice montage of footage that really speaks to the fact that you can play as Spider-Man in his traditional costume or in his black costume. It has Wolverine in there as a symbiote character. It has other supervillains. Lots going on right there in just a short amount of time. Good stuff.
Tired of the same old fun and games? Welcome, Spider-Man X-Men, to the video game ride of your lives.
Wolverine, Spider-Man, Gambit, Cyclops.
Now on Genesis, the ultimate video game team. Are we having fun yet?
There's so much going on in this 15 seconds, I love it. Just take a look at that great animation that they made, probably just for this ad. I can't imagine any other context for it. And it really just pumps you up for a game featuring both Spider-Man and the X-Men. Wasn't very good, but that's beside the point. I'll even give it a pass for getting Carnage's powers wrong. Remember, he was a brand new character at this point, so why not give him the power to throw energy bolts from his fists? Even that nitpick pales in comparison to what they did to Selene from the Hellfire Club's Inner Circle and X-Men. Fully analyzed in my book, Wrong, Retro Games You Messed Up Our Comic Book Heroes, just $2.99 on Kindle. Short version, this is one of the most seductive characters in comics. I'm just gonna say it, I'd love to see this game remade as an actual good product. Who's with me?
I'll blow this town to smithereens! Time bombs! Try to get up there in time, Spider-Man!
Watch me cut my web, Goblin!
Watch yourself fall, Silk Slinger!
Gotta stop the bombs in time!
If I don't get you, webhead, my diagnosis will!
Holy Hannah!
And you're running out of fluid!
Is this more action than even Spider-Man can handle?
Spider-Man, a video game from Parker Brothers, the ones to beat.
Parker Brothers went all in for its spot featuring the first ever Spider-Man game, and I love it so much. It's Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin wearing some of the most comics-accurate costumes you'll ever see. I think the Spider-Man costume is even better than the one in the 1970s TV series just a few years before it. Sure, it's super cheesy, but it's promoting an Atari 2600 game, and it does a great job of engaging you for 30 seconds when the gameplay itself is rather simple and probably wouldn't hold your attention for that long. I also love that they basically recreated this entire ad in print at the time. That said, even though I do contend that Spider-Man holds up better than most Atari 2600 games do these days, I don't think Spider-Man would like the answer to the question that he poses at the end.
Is this more action than even Spider-Man can handle?
No, Peter. No, it's not.
If this is too much action for you, take it up with this guy.
So what are your favorite ads for Spider-Man video games? Let me know in the comments. Throw in some trailers if you want, why not? And are there any TV ads you know about that I missed? If you liked this video, please follow Spider-Ham's advice. I'll see you next time.